So Bill Barr basically admitted that Trump was trying to steal the election. He was trying to overturn a free and fair election. He admitted that Trump is guilty of undermining and obstructing justice in the Mar-a-Lago incident. But he's still stuck on that we shouldn't indict a former president because it will set a stigma, if you will, in America. In other words, Bill Barr thought and believed that while Trump was president, he was above the law, that he shouldn't get charged with any crimes because he was the president. And now he believes that any former president should never get charged with a crime due to the fact that they're a former president. Well, I beg to differ with Bill Barr's opinion. Throughout the world, uh, countries have held their leaders accountable. Throughout the world, throughout history, leaders of nations have been held accountable. The president of Egypt was placed under house arrest. The president of Italy was indicted for corruption. Netanyahu, the president of Israel, was indicted for wrongdoings. Musharraf, the president of Pakistan, was under house arrest. So, what is America telling the world? That America is an untouchable, lawless land for our chief and commanders? That our chief of commanders have impunity as the world's sole superpower to pillage and plunder as they feel free, and to not be held accountable to any laws of the land, let alone the laws of the world, when it comes to the Union of Nations or the United Nations? What is people, legal scholars, well, I beg to differ on Bill Barr's argument, when they say that presidents, sitting presidents, should never be charged or accused, or let alone charged with a crime while they're presidents. Now he's saying that he thinks that the Justice Department is inching closer and that it has merit to indict Trump. But he's saying, but they shouldn't indict him because he feels so he's a former president, so he shouldn't be accused of anything when it comes to prosecutions because it will set a stigma on the republic. Well, when America leads the world as the world's sole superpower, and with the rest of the world holds their leaders accountable and brings charges when leaders break the law in corrupting the systems of their governments and breaking the rules, and they held their leaders accountable in the court of law. And America is setting a precedent with Trump because of stigma to his vanity and his grandeur, that somehow we shouldn't accuse him, even though he's most likely guilty of all these charges. We should be afraid of even insinuating of bringing charges on him, let alone bring charges on him. It's like America doesn't realize if you were the world's sole superpower, you got to lead by example. And the chief and commanders are not pillaging and plundering the world and being lawless at the same time and an untouchable to accountability. Does it show the world that we are just pillaging and plundering as a world sole superpower, and this is a land of lawlessness? As chief of commander, you can rob a baron the White House, you can pillage and plunder, you can steal, you can subvert, you can oppress, you can endanger, you can be an untouchable. How long America's plans to stay as a world sole superpower as a republican shows the world how ugly the republic really is, detached from the rest of the world. That America is a land of pure lawlessness, conservatively speaking. That when other countries hold their lead, look at Boris Johnson. He resigned because he was caught doing unprofessional behavior. He resigned. He had dignity to resign with grace. Theresa May was found that she wasn't up to the job, and they forced her to resign. She didn't bring a civil war upon the Republic. Neither did Boris. Neither did the Prime Minister that was before Theresa May. He also resigned for insufficient leadership. But these conservatives in America, they think that Trump is a deity, to lawless, untouchable, a deity that should never be tarnished. They're kind of making a god out of Trump, a pagan god, the conservative Republicans. When they keep on insinuating we should never, ever even think of accusing a president of a crime, let alone to bring charges and prosecution upon a former or sitting president. We should never, ever, is un-American. So what are we showing the world as a world sole superpower? That the chief and commander can suppress, subvert, abuse the American government? And what, we supposed to accept that the world will follow behind our lead as leaders of the free world, with knowing that America's Constitution, supposedly, with arguments like lawyers like Bill Barr saying that we should never do this to a sitting president or to a former president? Then if there's no accountability, and you can subvert democracy, you can obstruct justice, you can endanger the national security of your nation and other nations abroad, you can subvert civil rights, you can belittle and denigrate migrants, you can obstruct and blackmail a president for dirt on your political opponents. And so, to me, it's when the Republicans say, well, we should never, because like the lawyer in Florida said, if continual prosecutions can tend to stigmatize a former president. Stigmatize. You know what was wrong with Hitler? When the German government, when Hitler was a young protester attending fascist movements, rallies, when he was just coming out of his shell as a painter, artist. Remember, he got arrested, sent to jail, and the mistake of the German government was letting him out of jail to spread fascist Nazis' beliefs. That's when a system didn't hold the justice system to account. That they made the mistake to let a character like Hitler out of jail, to take the reins of the German government and to raise up a destructive war that he did. Are we to commit the same sin with Trump? To say no, despotism can be allowed. Hatred can be allowed. Desecration can be allowed when it comes to the justice system. We should never even consider accusations of a president that have endowed immunity from everything, including the responsibility of the world leader as a world sole superpower, when every other country holds their leaders accountable. Look at what happened to Saddam Hussein, because he got held accountable. Look at what happened to Gaddafi, because he got held accountable. Look at what happened to King Louis and Queen Antoinette, because he got held accountable. Look at what happened to the Romanovs, because they got held accountable. Look at what happened. What was that country? I don't remember. But it was an Eastern European country. I forget the name of it. Where the president and his wife got held accountable. So if justice fails to hold leaders accountable, then the people will rise up and hold those leaders accountable. Now that's the stigma that we have to think in this republic. If we are if we are afraid to hold a leader like Trump accountable to the law, then eventually he will overstep his bounds. That the pure rage of the republic will have its day in justice. When you hear the masses of the people say crying out for justice to be served, and the politicians, all they can do is sweep it underneath the rug. And for the population to say justice be served, and they just conservatively keeps on sweeping it underneath the rug. Now, I'm not for condoning a violent revolution, because that's what I'm not condoning at all. But I am condoning for the Justice Department to hold Trump accountable. Every leader, Netanyahu got indicted. Boris Johnson, Theresa May, and the prime minister that came before her, they all got caught of improper behavior and they resigned. Like at the end of the day, I believe that a former president, if he breaks the law, if he endangers the republic, if he endangers national security, if he endangers our allies, if he subverts civil rights, justice, if he obstructs corruption because he's business racketeering, if everything doesn't catch up to Trump and Trump goes through life, then eventually he will turn into America's Hitler. I don't mean to say he's a Nazi in a sense. I don't mean to say he's a Nazi, but look at what happened to Hitler when he got held accountable by sending him to jail. But look at what happened when he came out. He came out more of a hero than ever with his book. And you know what he spread? Fury and fascism. And see how out of control he got? Because I don't believe a leader is supposed to be a leader of a country if all that's coming out your mouth is demagoguery and hatred and division. You know, Trump at his first rally in 2015, leading up to 2016, his first rally, he looked out to the media. He says, turn the cameras. You're so dishonest. You're the enemy of the people. And then he said, you know why? Because I went home, I told Emalia, did you see the crowd size? And Emalia said, oh no, honey, unfortunately they didn't turn the cameras. And for vanity, for that reason, Trump waged a war on the media. Because Emalia didn't see how big the crowd was on the news when she was watching it from home. And for that reason, that was his first attempt at lashing out at the media and calling them the enemy of the people. He's full of hatred. There's no way around it. Trump is full of hatred. He's been like that. He is like that. He forever will be like that. When Biden was in the Constitutional Center saying that because of Trump, hatred is rising up, because of Trump, extreme militias are rising up, Trump had the gall to come to Pennsylvania to give Mastriano his support for becoming governor. And he had the gall to invite a speaker, a lady, because Trump at that rally said, not to mention Mastriano said Trump is the biggest hero of 9/11, which I don't get that. But Trump invited a lady to speak at that very same rally because Trump said, I'm going to free the people of January 6th. I'm going to give them clemency, and I'm going to get them out of jail. And he invited a lady to speak at that very same rally. And she came on stage saying, they're untreating my nephew unfairly. All he's guilty of is supporting Trump at January 6th. And he's been treated unfairly. And her nephew dressed up like Hitler, combed his hair like Hitler, had a mustache like Hitler, took pictures like he's the Führer. And this is who Trump and Mastriano invited to open up that particular rally. You see this sharp contrast between Trump and the Constitutional Center trying to ring the bell of liberty, while Trump went after that to desecrate that moment of Biden in the Constitutional Center. Trump desecrated it. A couple days in that very same weekend, he had a rally in Pennsylvania just to prop up Mastriano with his extreme militias. Because Mastriano, he's a fascist military guy that supports extreme right-wing militias in America that wants to override the government at any cost necessary. But these are the people that Trump wants to cozy up to give clemency, and invite a woman to speak on behalf of her Hitler wannabe nephew. And to this very day in the news, no, Mastriano hasn't condemned her. They haven't say, oh, we're against that. No. You didn't see Mitch McConnell coming out. You don't see Senator Sessions. You don't see none of them. It's like we're living in a twilight zone where there's two parallel universes, and the Republicans are detached from reality, and they reside in that twilight zone. That they don't comprehend reality at this point. They're so detached from understanding their leader. And at the end of the day, what are we to do in this republic when we appoint a leader with impunity to represent this beacon of freedom as a world sole superpower? What does it mean for the rest of the world to see an American furious I'm not going to say he's a Hitler. I walk away from saying he's a Hitler, or Nazi, but he's full of racism towards blacks and Latinos and Arabs. I can tell you that. But he is furious. He has in Spanish what we call Führer. Führer. That's what they call it, Hitler. The Führer. But in Spanish, you know what that means? Fury. And yes, go back, study his first rallies. Turn the cameras. You're so dishonest. You know, I went home. I told Emalia, did you see the masses of crowd that adored me? She said, no, they didn't turn the cameras. And for that reason, for vanity or for stigma, he decided to lash out at the media. And he's never stopped ever since. And it's been for vanity. He used to say, I come down those famous escalators. But now he's calling them the golden escalators. He said his Art of the Deal book is better than the Bible. He said his January 6th speech in the Ellipse was better than Martin Luther King's speech. He said his crowds that day were bigger than Martin Luther King. When he got sworn in the first time in 2016, he said his crowds were bigger than Obama's crowds. Stigma of narcissistic vanity disorder. That's what I call it when that judge sighed on behalf of Trump. I don't live and die by Trump's vanity. I have no respect for it. So, if Trump has some type of stigma about it, well, he has to look at that cracked mirror on the wall and see his reflection.